Seoul e-bike tour. Today we're going to be looking around Jongdo in Seoul, South Korea. My name is Vincent, this is Kevin, and we are WeRide Korea. We're going to start here at Cheonggyecheon River on this beautiful day. It's about 27 degrees centigrade, about 80 degrees Fahrenheit, so not too hot. We're going to start here on Cheonggyecheon. We're going to head over to the main palace in Seoul, Gyeongbokgung Palace. Gyeongbokgung. We're going to go to the West Village. We're going to go up to the city wall on Inhwangsan. We're going to visit Buamdong, the film location of the very famous, internationally famous film Parasite. We're going to then go to past the presidential palace, where we'll have to keep a low profile. We won't be filming the palace itself. We'll be passing by. We'll be then heading over to Bukchon, the world famous Bukchon, which is famous for Korean architecture, traditional architecture. And finally, we'll be heading back to this location here on Cheonggyecheon to say goodbye. So I hope you enjoyed the tour. Let's get going. So I have my helmet, my bike's all checked, my e-bike's all checked, and I got my water here. One of the wonderful things about riding in Korea is these awesome bike lanes. This is a fairly new one that follows along the Cheonggyecheon River. It's hard to believe that the Cheonggyecheon River used to be well, obviously it used to be a river, but then in Korea's rapid development it became a big road. It got covered over. During the period when Lee Myung-pak was mayor of Seoul in 1995, they uncovered the river again and restored it to its former beauty, natural beauty. So here in Korea, I'll be doing hand signals to show the cars and you and the other riders on the road how I'll be riding and where I'll be going for safety reasons. And I don't know where you are in the world, everywhere is slightly different as to what are the norms of hand signals, etc. And here in Korea, it's very simple. This would be right, this would be left. This means I'm stopping, and this means I'm slowing down. So we're heading around the back of the American Embassy at the moment, just over there. Mountain, where we will be visiting briefly Gwanghwamun, which is the main gate of the palace, the main palace, Gyeongbokgung. It's such a wonderful city to ride in. The motor vehicles, the drivers I should say, are very courteous and very cautious of bicycles. All in all, a very safe city to ride in. There's a beautiful Gwanghwamun Gate, the main gate of the royal palace, Gyeongbokgung. To the west of the gate and the west of the palace, you can see the mountain over there, the granite faces, it's quite dramatic landscape. That's the mountain that has the city wall going over to the west of the ancient city. You can just make out the city wall snaking up the mountain over there, and that's where we're riding up to today. It shouldn't be too taxing because I've got my trusty e-bike to help me get up. We'll be riding up that mountain, Inhwang Mountain, visiting the city wall, and then along the beautiful trail with panoramic views over the city here to a neighborhood called Buamdong, where, as I mentioned earlier, a very famous scene in the film Parasite was shot. We'll be visiting that today. But first, Gwanghwamun Gate. You'll notice on the gate there's the name written in Chinese characters, and those characters, that sign is read from right to left. Gwanghwamun. Let's do a quick detour here. If you were to, not open yet, but if you were to go through Gwanghwamun Gate, you would enter a large courtyard area, a large open area, which would then, you'd then be met by another gate. And then once you go through that, there's another courtyard and then another gate. And after that, a smaller courtyard where the throne room is, right in the middle. It's all in a line, so behind the throne room there's, I believe, offices where the king would, the king's office, and then behind that is his his chambers, and then the queen's chambers, and it all kind of travels in a line like that. if we were to continue down this road, we'd end up coming to a junction where we would go behind the palace to the right to visit the presidential palace, or if we went to the left, it would take us up to the neighborhood we're visiting, Guangdong. We're going to make a detour today. We won't go through the street. We'll make a U-turn here. Let's see, here we go. Oh, the West Village is a very quiet spot. Bit of construction here. Yeah, it's a quiet spot, which is why I like it. It's as you can see, the sky is visible since the buildings are quite low. In fact, as you can see, the buildings are very low. It's these traditional one-story Korean bungalows with the traditional architecture. These buildings are called Hanok homes. That style of architecture, traditional to Korea. These ones have tiled roofs. But Hanoks don't always have tiled roofs. In fact, back in the day, only wealthier people could afford the tiles. So most people had thatch roofs on their Hanok. Although, depending on the area you were building in, you'd use the local materials. So some of them had wooden slates or stone slates on the roof, depending on the materials available. But I believe I'm correct in saying the vast majority of Hanoks would have thatch roofs, and these ones have tiled roofs. So the reason that the neighborhood has very low buildings and hasn't really been developed is because we're very close to the Blue House here, the presidential palace. And the presidential, I'll let you go ahead of me. There you go. Hey on. The presidential palace is quite nearby, as I was saying, and for that reason, the buildings are restricted in this neighborhood to not be higher than three stories, and as a result, there's very little development that's occurred here. Any idea why only 3 stories? Well, I believe it's for the risk or the threat of assassination, threat of snipers, etc. Just for security reasons. since we're so close to the presidential palace. Let's cross over. Thought I lost you guys. Kev, I'm fairly sure we can ride. It's wide enough for the pedicab. Let's take a quick detour. So with WeRide tours, we like to, WeRide tours, we like to take the quieter streets whenever we can. We'll be mainly on bicycle lanes or on these side roads, which can be quite narrow. But much more pleasant. And this a side of Seoul that you often don't get to see if you're, well, you simply can't see if you're on a bus. And if you don't know your way around, you probably wouldn't come down here. It's one of the beauties of being on a bicycle. The freedom to explore places like that. And even if you get lost, you can get out pretty quick. And this part of the West Village, the buildings look a lot more modern. I think a lot of the traditional hammocks here were destroyed to make that road a little wider back during his rapid development. But if you go into the smaller streets, as we were in earlier in this neighborhood, you still see a lot of the traditional homes. And similar to the where we'll be visiting later in Bukchon, except I guess less people come to this West Village than Bukchon. Bukchon's more tourism orientated, lots more cafes and shops, etc. As the West Village is a lot more residentially orientated, although it does have many art galleries, and you will find some unique coffee shops in this neighborhood as well. I strongly recommend a visit to the West Village. It really is a wonderful place. Now we're hitting the mountain. So the e-bike's great, but it's not magic. You still just gives you that little extra push, so it's not so taxing on the legs. So this is the road I was telling you about, going up in One Mountain to the city wall. Taking a morning stroll and not much traffic. This road doesn't get much traffic. Really nice place to ride. So there's nothing in here. You can see the bike ahead of me as well. It's a popular place to ride because there's not much traffic. You'll notice everyone in Seoul wearing a mask. Korea's been really good. Korean citizens have been really diligent in following the civic duty, social distancing, mask, and hence that early surprise when the COVID pandemic hit, and Korea got hit quite early. We saw numbers spike. Well, I believe we've here in Korea kept things fairly well managed over the last couple of years. Well, last year, I should say. So it's been over a year now. Feels like a couple of years. And I gotta admit, riding on a road like this on a beautiful morning like today really helps you overcome those stresses. Right, let's make a turn here. little bit of construction on this corner, but it soon passes, and we're going down this quaint little road. You might be wondering, where are you going right now? And the answer is we're taking a little detour, short detour, to visit the city wall. And here it is. Let's take a look. Here we are at the city wall. It goes all around the ancient city of Seoul. Of course, Seoul's much larger than it used to be when it was first founded. It now extends way south of the Han River, which is the large river in the center of the modern city of Seoul. But in the past, that river we were on earlier, Cheonggyecheon, represented the middle of the city, and this wall represented the limit. It's about just over 18 kilometers all the way around, and you can walk the majority of it. The wall still exists today. It goes all the way to that mountain in the distance. That mountain in the distance there is Namsan, Nam Mountain, and that's the End Seoul Tower you're seeing on top. That's now probably in the center of Seoul, modern Seoul, but that was the southern extent of the ancient city, which was called Hanyang, not Seoul. Oh, being attacked by the wildflowers. What a beautiful spot. If you were to walk up the steps there, you can go all the way up to the top of the mountain, it's quite a hike. You can't ride up there. It's steps and rocky trail all the way. Let me show you something cool. Follow me. Come on over. Can you see that? The gentleman's taking a picture of. What do you think that cage is for right there? It's actually for, there are still wild animals in this mountain. Not tigers anymore, unfortunately. But they still have wild boar. And when they get too close to people, they can be dangerous. And, they get attracted down by the garbage or gardens in the neighborhood. And that cage is to catch wild boar if they get too close so that they can be relocated. Anyway, let's make a move. Off to Buandong, the screen location of Parasite movie, and also another place where we'll get a good look at the city wall here, Hanyang-dozong. I should also mention that on the way we'll be stopping by to take a good look over the city, see where we rode from. And there's also a couple of climbs, but some pretty fun downhills as well. Oh, that's so nice. Lovely to have a breeze like that. That's a real gift on a hot summer's day. If you were to go up some of these trails here in the mountain, you'd find yourself at visiting some Buddhist temples tucked away in the mountains. Follow me. I have something to show you. Coming up here, such a luxury to have a job that takes me out to wonderful places like this. And we come up here regularly. We come up here a lot with our tours, of course. And one of the things you notice is it's never the same. Every time you come, I think the vegetation's changed, the colors have changed, and the people have changed that you encounter along the way. So it's always fun. 안녕하세요. Beautiful retriever there. So where are we? Well, here we are. This is Seoul. Good morning. I love the light on the mount, just behind the mountains there. So we're looking now at Bugak Mountain, curling around to the east. That tall building you can just see jutting out is the East Gate, Dongdaemun market area. Just over there, where K-pop gets dressed. We'll be visiting that in our evening Ebike tour. Good evening, Seoul. I hope you join us for that episode as well. And curling around, you see where we started, the Jongdo Tower, just over there. That's around about where we started, where the Cheonghacheon River is, the center of the old city. Very famous building called Boshingak there, where just like Times Square, where the New Year is like Times Square in New York, where New Year is rung in. And then Namsan Seoul Tower that we saw earlier, the most southern extent of the city of Hanyang. That's where the city wall also goes over, and curling around, you can see just in the distance over the there, the Yuksam building. Can you see that? There we go. Just sticking through, you can just about make it out. That's actually on an island in the river, in the Han River, called Yeouido. So that used to be the tallest building in Korea, but not anymore. Now the tallest is the Lotte World Tower, which we can't make out today. Sometimes you can, but not today. Lotte World Tower is south of the river, and it's pretty tall. It's 555 meters tall. I think it makes it the 5th tallest building in the world at present, and certainly the tallest in Korea. 나갑니다. So that will be our last stop before we hit Buamdong. Let me remind you, Buamdong is where we'll see the city wall again, and we'll also visit the very famous spot, scene location from the movie Parasite. Ooh, let's turn my e-bike on. Got to love that. We're popping through the city wall here, and those mountains you see in the distance, that's the Bukhan mountain range. And that is a wonderful hike. If you ever get an opportunity to join us, hopefully we'll do a video hiking up there as well. It's a good at least 4 hours if you want to get to the top of the peaks, but it's well worth it. Take a right turn here. Sorry, a left turn. Down into Buamdong. This neighborhood is called Buamdong, and it's, as I mentioned, one of the filming locations of the film movie Parasite, which is where we're going to go first. So, follow me. I'm going to leave my bike right here. Well, Buamdong is another one unique neighborhood because of its picturesque location and the interesting architecture of these, I would say, rather modern houses. There's a mix, you know, there's some of these older brick houses, I'm guessing from like the 70s. And then there's the more modern buildings over here, maybe the 90s. And then you see in the distance the large residential homes tucked into the hills. It's quite a well-off neighborhood. And it's quiet. So all of that combined, you know, the interesting architecture, the large houses, the smaller houses, the older houses, the newer houses, and some of the historical buildings, and that we'll visit shortly as well, the gate and the city wall here. We'll visit that just shortly. The combination of all this makes it a really interesting spot to film. It's been used in a lot of film locations. By far, I would say, the most internationally recognized film that's been filmed here, I believe I'm correct to say, is Parasite. And there's one scene in particular that's very famous. It's kind of, I won't spoil the movie for you if you haven't seen it, but it's a low point in the movie. It's kind of where the main characters experiencing, you know, their lowest points, and this is depicted as them running, escaping down some stairs, the rain pouring down, and they go down a long set of stairs, and that we can see just through here. These aren't the stairs. Come on in. Those are the stairs. So Junho-bong, or in Korea, Bong Junho, as it's in the movie, it depicts class disparities and you know, different levels in society, and you know, there's a lot of play on levels and stairs, and there's lots of imagery to show different levels in society. But as they are running down these stairs, I believe I'm correct in saying that it depicted like them really feeling low and feeling lower. It was a difficult point in the movie for the main characters. If you look over here, you'll see the Korean version of the poster. The movie in Korean is called Gi Seng Chung, meaning Parasite. And you can get your picture taken down here or up here. Pretty neat, huh? Okay guys, let's get back to the bikes. Before we leave Buamdong, we're going to visit another site, historical site. You can just make out the city wall in the distance there in the background. We're going to go up to city wall, and there's a very famous gate there called Changi-mun. It's actually today the oldest original structure, because you know these buildings get, as time passes, they get burnt down or they fall down, or there's war, destruction, and they get modified and adjusted. These things happen over time. Well, this building, this gate, has been pretty much left alone for a long time. So it's one of the oldest original structures, original gates in the city wall. Is there a bike tool in there?
Which one?
For here.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay, follow me. A small adjustment on my handlebars, a little bit close to me. There we go. Just leave the e-bike there. I'm from England. I don't think I mentioned it. I'm from England, and I would never do that in England. In London, I'd probably give that about 5 seconds. Seoul is incredibly safe. I mean, shouldn't get complacent, because, you know, it can happen anywhere in the world. But it's just a lot less likely here. Welcome to Changi-mun. Beautiful. You can see the colors in the gate, the green and the red, the yellow, the blue. These colors you find in royal buildings and temples. But you'll have noticed in the West Village that regular homes don't have this colorful decoration. It's not just decoration, it actually has a lot of meaning, and you'll notice that green is the predominant color. Green in Korea represents benevolence. If we were to go up these stairs, it would take us up to the city wall. It's not currently open at the moment at this time in the morning, and there's a lot of security here. Why? Because we're right next to the Blue House and the presidential palace. So it says here, this pavilion was destroyed last by a Japanese invasion in 1592, but then was rebuilt in 1741, and now is one of the oldest of the four small, of the gates in the city wall. You can see here on the map that a lot of the gates still remain. This one doesn't, and this one doesn't, but the rest of them do. This is Haewhamun, next to Haewhamun. Let's come around. There you go, Hungin-jimun. This gate is really beautiful. It's one of the four larger gates in the city wall, and this one is the one that we visit on our evening e-bike tour. So hopefully you'll join us for that episode later today. Let's head back to the bikes. We'll be going down the way to the past the presidential palace, and over to the east side of the palace, a neighborhood called Bukchon, which is famous for its traditional housing. Oh, before you come through, make sure you check out the mosaic on the ceiling. What do you think they are? It's the two chickens, actually, and they're there to catch the bugs that might come through this gate. Funnily enough, this neighborhood is also famous for fried chicken. If you've never had Korean fried chicken, well, you're missing out. If you take a look on his sign, you'll notice what I was referring to earlier. A lot of these older Hanok houses here, this is a picture from the 1900s, have thatched roofs on them, a grass roof, and some of the more wealthier ones will have tiles. The majority would have been thatched. It's nice to see the buildings still here in their original locations. Turn my e-bike on. Ready to go? Yep. All right. This here, this coffee shop, Club Espresso, since 1990. This room is to be a coffee shop where Moon Jae-in, the current president of South Korea, President Moon, is rumored to have enjoyed coffee here before he was president. And if you were to go in, they have a special moon blend in his honor. It's a very interesting coffee shop. It's very, when you go inside, there's a lot of woodwork, and I guess the owner really likes woodworking. There's a lot of tools, stuff you wouldn't expect in a coffee shop. Now we're in for a ride. It's a brilliant downhill all the way down back into the city again. And it's 2 lanes, so the cars can take the first lane and we're on the outside. Ah. I wonder why there's so much traffic here today. It's unusual. So you'll notice security positions around the area. We're making it to the Blue House Presidential Palace, which is called the Blue House because it's got a blue roof. We're moving to that neighborhood right. So what you can't probably make out right now is we're riding past the Blue House, presidential Blue House. We've got to be very respectful of the security around here, and there's things that we cannot film. But we're passing by this bike lane, going right past the nation's seat of power, which is fantastic. I think that's a great symbol. Got a bicycle lane passing right in front. And we're between the rear entrance to the palace. We've got the palace wall on our right hand side, and then the presidential estate on the left. The main building, yeah, I'm sure you can Google it, is the Blue House, and it's called that because it has a blue roof. Blue in Korea represents, it's a very noble color. It represents purity of mind. It represents the people. It represents the mountains, and it represents water as well. So this neighborhood that we'll briefly be passing through just at the bottom of this hill is called Samcheongdong, which is Samcheong, Cheong being blue, and Sam being three. It's the three blues, neighborhood of three blues. And those three would be the mountains that we just experienced, the water. I'm sure you're wondering where the water is as we come down this road, and the answer is it's beneath us. This road used to be a river, and the water still flows beneath us. So there's the mountains, the water that's beneath us here, and then there's also the light blue, which is the people. And you'd hope the people of this neighborhood had that purity of mind, because this is where a lot of the leaders of the country have resided historically and in modern times too. So it was the neighborhood where the royal family would live in the past, and it's the neighborhood where the mayor of Seoul lives, and the prime minister's residence, as well as a lot of very influential people. The building that you can see to our right over here, this is the MMCA, Museum of Modern and Contemporary Art. It's a really cool place to visit if you're ever here in Korea. Historically, it hasn't been used. The buildings had different uses. I believe the red brick building to my rear was a military building, and this more modern building was a military hospital. Now the whole lot is the MMCA, Museum of Modern and Contemporary Arts. And this is where we'll be entering a neighborhood called Bukchon, where you'll see a lot of the traditional Korean houses called the hanok, and you'll see that it's quite different from the West Village. The hanoks here and the neighborhood, the feel of the neighborhood is a lot more tourist orientated rather than the West Village, which is a lot more residential. Oh, here we go. So we're taking a slightly different route from the route we took last time. Last time we went straight up into the Hanok village. This time I'm going to take you around the back of the MMCA, Museum of Modern and Contemporary Arts. There's a little gem around here. There it is. It's beautiful Joseon Dynasty building. This building was where a lot of royal records, like the family tree and a record of the royal family was kept in there. It was also a lot of the ceremonial attire for the royal family was kept in that building. Hey. Now, it's still very early in the morning, but this is a bustling area, shops, cafes, and Baskin Robbins over here. Doesn't look like your average Baskin Robbins. There's a library. Now it's a lot quieter these days since we have less tourism in Korea. We have some tourism. Those who've mainly come for work or school, and they go through 2 weeks of quarantine, and then they can it looks like something's being filmed here. Go through their 2 weeks of quarantine, and then they can enjoy the neighborhoods like this. A little bit of a climb. Here up into the Bukchon Hanok village area, and it looks like we found the filming location. This is another spot where a lot of filming occurs, and you'll know why when we get there. It's a beautiful, whimsical neighborhood. So if we pass through. 안녕하겠습니다. Must recommend this wonderful tea house over here. You can try some traditional Korean teas in a traditional Korean building called Hanok. I don't know about you guys, but I'm going to walk up here. How are we doing for time, Kevin?
Fine, Kevin.
So it's 7 minutes past 9. There's two reasons I asked that. Firstly, I don't want to keep you guys too long. Secondly, because in this neighborhood, in this part of this neighborhood, we have to be, just like in the West Village, very respectful of people who live here. This is a residential neighborhood, it's not a museum. People live in these homes. And it's still quite early. so try to keep our voices down. Just breathtaking. Just peeking through at the top of the buildings over there, you can see the Lotte World Tower, very back. In the foreground, the square building is Dongdaemun Market, is at Dongdaemun Market. And in the background, you can see the pointy building, that's the Lotte World Tower, 5th tallest building in the world and the tallest in Korea. And what a contrast. Super modern and the traditional old architecture of this right next to each other. And that's Seoul in a nutshell for me. Beautiful. So whether you're in the most modern home in Seoul or one of these traditional homes, the heating system for the winter, which is winters are very cold in Korea, the heating system is from under the floor. And that dates back to a traditional heating system in these old houses called ondol, where the fire is lit at one side of the building, the smoke is blown through a cavity under the floor, releasing the heat through the stone floor, and then the smoke is released at the other side through a chimney. Shall we ride? The houses in this neighborhood are interesting as well. Right next to the Bukchon Hanok village are these more modern bungalows we're riding through. And they still have a traditional feel to them. Right, we're back to where we were just moments earlier, the more commercial area of the Bukchon neighborhood. This street's called Yumboson-gil. Because that house there was where a very famous president of Korea called Yumboson resided. I believe his family still resides there today. He was the second president of Korea, I believe. The bottom of this picturesque alley is another street called, well, we'll be crossing over a big road, and then there's a street called Insadong-gil. Insadong, if you've been researching Korea, you may have heard of Insadong. It's a very famous market street, and it's famous particularly for antiques. So as you can imagine, where we came from, this lane, this beautiful lane here, where we came from that leads to Bukchon, the Hanok village, where I mentioned a lot of wealthy and influential people would live there in the past. The royal family would be resided there, and during the period of Japanese occupation, those people fell out of favor, and you could imagine where a lot of their old furnishings and family heirlooms would end up at the nearest market here in Sadong. Once again, it's quite quiet right now. It's still early and it's a Tuesday, so those are two reasons. But regardless, in a regular year, this would be heaving with tourists looking for something to remind them of Korea, a Korean souvenir or some food, traditional Korean food. It's abundant in this neighborhood. Well, before we head back to where we started over at the bridge over Cheonggyecheon River, I'd like to take you by a very unique space in this city, and a very important space in Korea today. It's the main temple, Buddhist temple, of the Joge order. And the name of the temple is Joge Temple. Let's go and have a look. Wonderful space, which also has a Michelin star temple food restaurant associated with it. So there's the main gate to the temple, and the main building is to the rear. And you see again a lot of green in the building. Again, green representing benevolence. Right now is a really special time because the lotus flower is blooming in the yard in front of the temple. Lotus being a symbol of Buddhism. Just down this road is just where we started, actually. Just down the way. The Changchun River is just down there. So we're very close to where we started. Bukchonghana village is down that way. And you can see the Bugat mountain in the distance. And here we are. The main gate of Joge Sa. You can see the 4 characters here. The guardians of Buddha on his journey. On his travels. Just park here a moment, show you the lotus flowers. Come on in. Beautiful. There's the Jogesar temple. That tree that you see in the foreground, that's a white lacebark pine that dates back over 500 years. It's pretty old character. And over there, the Sephora tree is over 300 years old. That was a gift from China by a scholar visiting. And I often wonder how we got such a big tree all the way over here. It was much smaller at the time. These, on these lotus here, you can see the little messages and names on the tags, which you can buy those tags and write a message and your name, hang it on one of these lotus, bringing you prayers and blessings from the temple. as we walk up to into the temple grounds. You can see the pagoda on the left-hand side. Behind that is where you can offer your prayers, incense. You do that facing the pagoda and the temple. You light your incense, 3 sticks, and your prayer, and then bow towards times. It really is a peaceful space. It doesn't feel like I'm in Seoul anymore. I feel like I'm on top of a mountain somewhere. And yet when you look up, the contrast between the tradition and the city is all right next to each other. You don't have to look up to remember where you are. It certainly feels like a completely different spot. Very beautiful. Inside the temple there, you can see there's actually 4 Buddhas, 3 large ones with their hands in different positions representing benevolence, forgiveness, and health. And then there's a smaller Buddha on the right-hand side. That's a Buddha of the future, symbol of hope. Well, join us. We'll exit out the rear of the temple. And head back to where we started, Cheonggyecheon River. Looks like we've lost our escort. Where's Kevin? No? I'll tell you what, folks. Let's go around the corner here and we'll cut the video right here since it's not a good spot. Here we are. So, thank you very much for joining me on this tour today, or the morning e-bike tour. Good morning, Seoul. And I hope you join us for our next episode as well, which is the evening e-bike tour. Good evening, Seoul. And we'll be shooting that later on today. So join us for that live, or watch the video. That's going to be on our YouTube channel. My name's Vincent. This is WeRide. Thanks to Kevin over there for escorting, and our cameraman, Taeyong. Good job. Thanks for joining us today. I've had fun. I hope you have too. And I'll see you on the next episode.